trade wars, tariff challenges, inflation rates, level of unemployment, and new jobs that are opening in the economy. Well, they have a direct impact in our quality of life today and in the future. Stick with me and I'll give my opinion to all the seemingly nebulous macroeconomic conditions that would definitely directly affect our day-to-day lives as your typical man in the street. First of all, I'm not an economist, I'm not a political expert. Everything that I'm going to say here is actually based on my personal observations, my personal experience, and my own opinions. Nothing more, nothing less. And I'm going to base that coming from the experiences that I've had in life for 45 years now. And after having lived in 5 countries and having survived and thrived to a certain extent in various economic challenges. These are the things that I've experienced and I have endured, which will make me a little bit knowledgeable or would have the right to have an opinion on these topics. So on the recent tariff wars that's happening between the US and other countries, the tariff challenges, the imposition of these resulted to the rising cost of importation that had a direct impact on manufacturing or cost of goods of the actual products that are being marketed to US consumers. And the direct impact of that would be on the overall cost of how a business actually operates in the country. And if the cost increases, well, of course, there are revenue or profitability targets. The business owners, especially for public companies, would have to find a way to save on costs so that they can retain the level of profitability for their companies and their brands. So one of the key things that would potentially result to these challenges would be to cut on internal labor. So it means that they will potentially lay off people within the company to save on costs. And I've experienced that directly. I was a victim of layoff 3 months ago, and it was directly related to the increased tariff because the products being sold by the previous company that I was a part of are majority coming from China. So if you're going to increase the cost of that by more than 120%, it's just simply impossible for you to survive. Even if you increase the price, if people will be seeing that you've increased the price, potentially the level of demand or the amount of sales that you will eventually have would be lower. So it's a double whammy, unfortunately. So definitely there is a direct correlation between these tariffs to increased cost of operations, potentially increasing price for customers, and potentially laying off people from those organizations to save on cost. So therefore, it would directly affect you and me because of our level of employment, the security that we'll have on our jobs. Second would be the amount of prices that we will eventually see in the marketplace. If you had a certain budget before and you can't afford X dollars of goods, if your income is not moving, if your pay, for example, or your business is not increasing when it comes to revenue or income, then your purchasing power would decrease somehow. And that is also affected by the increased inflation. So as inflation rates increase, prices increase, so therefore your purchasing power is actually negatively affected as well. So that's the very obvious and practical direct impact. The second impact I would have to say would be on our quality of life within the context of our overall mental wellness. Because of all these changes that are happening that for sure, clearly, we do not have a direct control over, then we'll start to be anxious about our current situation and our future scenario as well, which again is going to be very challenging, especially for folks who would have a lot of commitments or responsibilities, not only for themselves, but also for their family. I can't imagine the pressure that, say for example, that a father would experience if he comes home from work after being laid off and his wife is a stay-at-home mom who's taking care of 3 kids. That for sure would have a very challenging impact on the mental state of that father and of course the rest of the family members, which I know is kind of sad. Impact number 3 would be on our future stake and our future planning. So with this entire turmoil happening, if you're gonna check your 401k, for example, or if you're investing on stocks, you would see that all of a sudden, there was that phase that the value of your 401k and your stock just plummeted. And that would have a direct impact as well on your retirement, because you're saving all those funds for your retirement and assuming that suddenly, the level or the value of your funds will plummet, then it would also have a direct impact on how much you can afford the future needs that you have when you retire. So definitely, not only do we have a direct impact on the short-term situation that we're experiencing, but also on the long term. But the good news there is that after seeing all the financial crisis that we've experienced in our lifetime so far, the time horizon, fortunately, is something that we have on our side potentially if we're relatively younger, if we're not retiring tomorrow, for instance. However, for those people who are retired and are living on their day-to-day based on what they have on their fund, I feel for them. And I know that it's going to be very challenging, especially if their health already deteriorated or if the level of support that the monetary fund that they are banking on their retirement fund is actually pre-allocated or is being used for all their needs on a daily basis, then for sure it's a seemingly future challenge which they are now experiencing on their daily basis. However, I don't want this video to be a picture of doom and gloom because, at the end of the day, yes, we may not have a direct control over all these things that are happening. However, we have the opportunity, if we will find within ourselves what we can do to not just be resilient, but to really be persevering and enduring on these macroeconomic challenges and finding ways on how we can cope and make this work for us instead of against us. And some examples are as follows. 1, there is a need for us to increase the level of our income on a monthly basis in our household. So what can we do? If there is an opportunity for us to do fractional work or consulting or freelance work or part-time roles in addition to our 9-to-5 jobs or our full-time roles, then there is an opportunity to do so. Number 2, to monetize the ways that we currently do to help others or to add value to others. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I do understand that sometimes we do these for service, we do this to help. However, if we're truly adding value to others and there are opportunities for us to leverage the monetization of what we are currently doing while still enjoying them, then I think it is an opportunity cost that we are not leveraging at this point. So probably if we're gonna do an audit of what we're doing for others, that is of great value to them, which they will potentially understand if we would be charging them something, whether it's a monetary amount or an exchange of goods or of time, then I think that will just be understandable because ultimately we're providing a solution to the problems that other people would also have. And number three, I don't want this to sound woo-woo, but in these situations where our lives are being challenged, it is important for us to get in touch with our spiritual side, to get in touch with our inner strength and find ways to create solutions that will make our mental wellness stable or sound, and find a source of strength that will make us live a better life on a daily basis. It can be in the form of prayer, if you're a faith believer, or if you're someone who embraces faith communities or organized religions, or it can be through meditation, or it can be through therapy, or it can be through volunteerism, or different organizations that can eventually help you when it comes to strengthening your inner peace, strengthening your mental wellness and your internal capacity. Because in these trying times, especially those that are linked to economic reasons, I would firmly say that it's an easier problem to solve than a problem that's coming from inner struggles. So in these situations where we are facing challenges on our day-to-day practical lives, it is important for us to strengthen what's inside us so we can use that as a way and as a channel to bring to life new ideas, new approaches, and new opportunities, and finding ways to make the seemingly doom and gloom situation have an optimistic take and have an optimistic plan so that we can move forward, we can find ways to do better, and we can look at the challenges that we have as opportunities to be better, not only on the short term, but also in the future. I know it's easier said than done, but I hope that you can find deep within yourself the opportunity to think that way. So I hope that this video helped you when it comes to future-proofing your situation given the current challenges that we're all experiencing. And I think the other important thing to think of and always remember is that you are not alone. We are one community here, and if they're saying that it takes a village to raise a life, a child, and to thrive in every endeavor where we're at, definitely the village that we know of is the village that we should all be holding on to find strength in each other and to have the courage and the opportunity to not just survive, but really thrive in the situation where we're all at. So good luck to you all. If you have questions, comments, or other opinions, feel free to just drop them here.